Well, hello, and welcome to episode 168 of Drink the Movies. I'm Brian here, as always, with Michaela. And Michaela, we are heading on our way to go see a new film, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It is carrying on this new trilogy of films, but really, these new Planet of the Apes, they got their start back in 1968 with the original film. Now, growing up, I remember a couple of things. Watching movies, of course, Star Wars, which we've talked about, and Terminator 2, which we've talked about, but mostly my movie watching memories revolve around like these Sunday matinees, like my dad and I sitting down to watch movies. And it seemed like, at least in my region of the United States, your Sunday matinee movie was either one of the, I don't know, like 500 James Bond films or Planet of the Apes. So I've always had a real soft spot for good old Charlton Heston crash landing on this alien world out there. But what do you think, Michaela? Planet of the Apes, the original. What do you think?
So this is the moment where I confess to you that I was an adult the first time I saw the Planet of the Apes, the original.
Okay.
Yeah. So I saw Spaceballs before I saw Planet of the Apes. And anybody that knows what Spaceballs is, it's a giant spoof done by Mel Brooks on like Star Wars and like all things Star Wars esque, right? So instead of the Force, it was the Schwartz. Instead of the Death Star, it was like a giant maid that sucked in oxygen as if she was like a vacuum. I don't know. Anyway, but at the
Hmm.
end of that movie, not to spoil it, but there's a whole scene where the ship blows up and a piece of the ship ends up on a planet and you see these apes and they're like, "Ooh, what is that?" And I was like, I don't get it. I never understood that. And my dad was like, "That's from Planet of the Apes." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, Mark Wahlberg was in this really awful Planet of the Apes movie. I don't want to say it was awful, but they tried to reboot it in like
It was
2004,
2001. 2001, yeah.
2001. Yeah. And I
Hmm.
was like, I think today is the day I'm going to go watch Planet of the Apes, the original, with Charlton Heston, who's arguably got the best voice. Like he definitely like has the voice of God, right? He's famous for all
Yep.
sorts of things. And this is one of them. And so I didn't get to see this until I was an adult. Sad
No,
for me.
that is sad for you, but not sad for us here at Drink the Movies because we're going to be watching it. We're going to be talking about it today, and we're going to be making an excellent cocktail to go with it. It is easy. It involves a new ingredient we talked all about in the lobby bar. So let's do this, Michaela. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll grab some tiki ingredients, and we'll be right back to whip up this week's Planet of the Apes cocktail.
So Brian, I have a banana leaf branch to extend to you
Okay,
because Planet of the Apes is one of your favorite movies. You have a real
true.
soft spot for it, as you've said.
I do.
Every other movie that you have really, really loved, I have found the most hated ingredients of your life and put them into a shot glass and made you drink it.
Mm, yeah,
And I'm sorry for that. But I hope you'll forgive me because this drink I think is amazing. And I found it just for you, knowing that you love banana liqueur and
I do.
and and so do apes, right? That's like a total thing that happens. You
Presumably,
get to
yeah.
watch, yeah, you get to watch these gorillas in the zoo like open bananas and eat them, and then like what they play with the rind or whatever, the peel. Anyway, this drink is amazing and it's for you. And there you go.
That's true. That's true. Thank you. I appreciate this banana leaf gesture. And yeah, maybe this is for me, but maybe it's also just a classic tiki drink. It's called Planet of the Apes, and I guess it's getting that name because it has the inclusion of the banana liqueur in there. And we were thinking about what to do, and if you have a classic cocktail that's taking its name directly from a film, we got to do that one. So let's go ahead and put one of these together, Michaela. This one's pretty simple. It's going to be really good if you're having like a summer party because these ingredients are, pretty, readily available things you might already have on hand for the most part. You get this banana liqueur. It's a really great way for that. We gave you some other suggestions back in the lobby bar from this week, so go check that out. But let's throw one of these together. So into a shaker tin with some ice, go ahead and put in 1 ounce of dark rum, a half ounce of lime juice, 1 ounce of pineapple juice, 1 ounce of orange juice, 3/4 of an ounce of the Gifford Banana do Brazil. If you don't have that one, you could use just a regular banana liqueur. I would probably dial it down a little bit because it's going to be too sweet. But if you have the Giffords there, definitely go ahead and use that 3/4 of an ounce. And then a half ounce of overproof rum. I used Bacardi Hurricane proof rum was the one that I used. It's like 100 proof, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead and shake that with the ice. And then what I did for mine, Michaela, was I just dumped ice and all into a tiki glass, ready to go. I figure if I was at like a resort somewhere, that's probably what they would do, how they would put it together. So I just dumped it out into my glass and sipped and enjoyed. But this one was easy and delicious.
Was easy and it was delicious. I have to say, I was worried that it was going to be too tart because of the lime and the pineapple juice.
Hmm.
And you should always use fresh lime. And if you can, use fresh pineapple juice and fresh orange juice. If you can't, I mean, canned is okay, I guess. But I was worried that it was going to be really tart, and it was not. The banana de Brazil is not as sweet, as you've said, as some of the other banana liqueurs. So you might want to like either up the lime juice content or just go easy on the banana de Brazil, or else it's going to be real syrupy. But I loved this. I had at least two because it was that good. And it's a really interesting,
At
like
least.
jungle color. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something you want to have when you're on your porch, you're out looking at the trees, or you're sitting by the pool. I mean, this could be my go to kind of pool drink for 2024.
Hmm. Yeah, and this one would work really well if you wanted to batch this size up and make like a picture of this if you were pouring it out for like a pool party or any sort of like summer get together, cookout, something like that, because it's summery and delicious without being super difficult to put together to gather these ingredients. Like I said, that banana do Brazil from Gifford there is probably going to be the odd one out, the one you're going to have to maybe go and get to check out. But this was really good, Michaela. It's a classic tiki drink for a reason. It was really simple, and I think it's going to be really good come summer because we each have our own bottle of Giffords now, so we'll be able to make up plenty of these, and that's good because there are a lot of Planet of the Apes that we're going to be talking about here over the next 2 weeks, but just a lot of other ones out there, and we're going to talk a little bit about that once we get into the episode. So let's do this, Michaela. Go ahead and grab the dark rum. I'll grab a pineapple. We'll mix up another one of these, and we'll be right back to chat about this week's film, Planet of the Apes.
A civilization where humans run wild in the jungles. And the superior beings are apes. Discover Planet of the Apes.
Spoiler warning for Planet of the Apes. If you've not seen this 1968 classic directed by Franklin J. Schaffner and starring Charlton Heston as astronaut George Taylor, you're really missing out. And there's a definite spoiler at the end, and we're definitely going to spoil it. So if you haven't seen this, press pause, go make yourself up a Planet of the Apes cocktail because it is ridiculously yummy. And then watch the movie, come back, and we can chat about it.
That's right. Yeah, definitely don't want to get spoiled on this ending. Some might say the biggest twist in film history, potentially. We'll talk about that as we get into this. As you said, Michaela, this was released in 1968, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner, and it stars Charlton Heston and Roddy McDowall and Kim Hunter. They are our science-minded Cornelius and Zira. They're going to be helping along the way. There's some other people in this too we're going to talk about. Michaela, Planet of the Apes is kind of a big deal. It was nominated for 2 Academy Awards for costume design, Morton Hack there, and score in a non-musical category by Jerry Goldsmith. Jerry Goldsmith has 18 Academy Award nominations on a side note, so Jerry Goldsmith is good at the score, and this one is very it's atmospheric, it's driving, it's almost like horror-esque kind of at the beginning of it. I like the score to this quite a bit. It's a little bit jarring. It's definitely like very like I don't know, of that period of like late 60s, right? It feels very much kind of in that time frame, but Jerry Goldsmith's score was excellent there. Lost both of those, but Planet of the Apes did win an honorary award for achievements in makeup for John Chambers. They also gave an honorary award for achievement in makeup to the Seven Faces of Dr. Lau in 1964. So they gave this out twice in the 60s, but they didn't make it an official Academy Award until 1981. You think if you give something out like twice in a decade, you probably say, well, maybe we should just do this all the time, make it a
Yeah.
regular thing. I don't know.
I mean, we have John Chambers to thank for that, right? Because they did it two times in the 60s and they didn't see it in the 70s. And then they were like, what have we done? We should probably start, right? Not
Yeah,
bad.
we should
Yeah,
start it
better
now.
late than never, you know?
Better late than never. Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, the makeup was a big draw on this. putting the film together, I guess, kind of going to the movie studios, they actually had to create basically like a promo reel for this. So Franklin G. Schaffner and Charlton Heston and like the makeup test, because the movie studios didn't believe that they could actually like make this movie or make it like realistic at all. So they made like a
Right.
little short film to basically prove their merit. I think that happened in 1964, I think. And then we get the actual film here in 1968, and the film did a lot of things. We're going to talk about the legacy bit of this here as we get to the end. So let's just get straight into the movie. Michaela, we're on a spaceship. I love the design of the spaceship. It looks really cool. You get Charlton Heston. He's there. You know, George Taylor, he's the astronaut. You got three other astronauts are there. They're already asleep in their bunk, but George Taylor is pondering out over the stars, thinking about his place in the universe, smoking a cigar. Nothing more like American in the 60s than smoking a cigar on the on the
On the one
deck
place that could kill
of
you. Yeah.
of your ass or of your spaceship for sure.
Right. Yeah. No, I have to say, so again, I was an adult when I watched this and I was not a film student. Okay. But I remember distinctly being like, oh, this opening scene reminds me a lot of 2001 Space Odyssey. And what's fun fact, they were both done in 1968 and they're both these epic science fiction films. Right.
Hmm, hmm.
I thought some of the work that they did around this idea of like cryo sleep or like extended sleep through time and how that affect how they explain the effect that that has on a human versus what could be happening on the space around them was really interesting. It's actually amazing to me that it was only in 1968. It wasn't that far long ago when that idea became kind of a just a trope that now we use all the time where, to us, it's
Hmm.
only been 2 weeks, but we leave a planet, we come back, and now it's hundreds of years later, right? And we have no idea what's happened to the spaces that we've been like away from, right? So I
Hmm.
really like that. And they explain it really well at the beginning with Taylor. He's kind of this curmudgeon loner guy. I mean, he kind of reminds me of like this really just, I don't know, unhappy, stoic person when he's sitting in his chair and he's like, we're gonna create a new world and we're going to this star and it's gonna be amazing and we're gonna find all these things. And he's like talking to someone as if they're gonna listen. And he's like, I don't have any idea when you're gonna hear all this, but it was just very I don't know. And the Charlton Heston voice too, which is supposed to
Hmm.
give us comfort and love, but it sounds so weird and empty in the tome of space and where he's kind of by himself and he's billions of light years from everyone he's ever known.
And that completes my final report until we reach touchdown. We're now on full automatic in the hands of the computers. I've tucked my crew in for the long sleep, and I'll be joining them soon. In less than an hour, we'll finish our 6th month out of Cape Kennedy. 6 months in deep space. By our time, that is.
Yeah, and because the movie, it starts with him basically giving kind of this opening monologue, speaking like on behalf of humanity as he's out in space there and goes, and then kind of through the first section of the film he gets like several more of these monologues that only Charlton Heston can have kind of the like on screen like bravado to give and be as commanding while still being like charming in a way, but authoritative in a way. And I really like that. He goes to sleep. Of course, they're in there. They're going into like hibernation, sleep there to get back to Earth to find out if this experiment works. Right? There was the hypothesis that time travel could happen. There were like these folds of space where you could go through, and time would happen. So basically, we're going to go 2,000 years into the future when our astronauts wake up. Unfortunately, only three of the astronauts make it. One of the astronauts is not long for the world. Her little hibernation thing cracked, so she's old, I guess 2,000 years old there in that. But we have three astronauts left, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So we've got Taylor, of course, and we've also got Landon and Dodge crash landing into this. I love it. It's like I don't know, it's like this like mountain desert range in like Utah, Arizona. They're flying into like it's crazy looking. Like I don't know how like they filmed it so well. It looks great. They make a big deal about this being shot in Panavision because it's very wide and epic. A lot of this first section of the movie reminds me of like Lawrence of Arabia, just in like the amount of scale and scope and like how like wide they made these shots feel.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how they did the lake crash landing, because they land in this big body of water, and it's like a real lake. I don't know how they could have figured that out. And then
The spaceship looks so cool sticking up out of the lake.
it does, and it's obviously sinking. Like, it is actually sinking. So I don't know how many times they like pulled it out, or if they were like, guys, you have like 25 seconds to get out of this thing, and we're just gonna film you figuring it out, because they're so calm as the water is like gushing in. And so again, I don't know exactly how they filmed it, but Taylor is like, look, we need to figure out where we are. We've only got a few minutes. Dodge and Landon are like grabbing a couple of essentials. They end up making it out just in time. And that you can see like the very, very tip of the ship, like sinking down in the water as they get out, and they like start to do some analysis immediately, because they're like, can we even breathe this air? Are we going to die? Like, what is this? And where they are, they're in this like desert wasteland. Like, nothing is able to grow. They can't see anything. They've done some, I don't know, analysis in the soil, and they're like, well, we got like 3 days of food before we die, so I guess we should like walk around and see what happens. And they like leave like a flag, a United States flag, which is so us. That's so us. Like, in times of complete desperation, we need to make sure that we claim something for America, even if we can't live there. We're like, it's ours. We've been here first.
It's ours. There's nothing there. Yeah, absolutely. Our crew is bound to survive. Landon, who's played by Robert Gunner, and Dodge, who's played by Jeff Burton.
Well, if there's no life here, we've got just 72 hours to find it. That's when the groceries run out. Let's go.
Which direction? That way. Any particular reason?
None at all.
They're there. There's no signs of life. No life can grow next to this lake that we've crash landed in. So we have to make our way across the landscape. It's very much like a trek across the deserts and across these mountains. And then we get to, I think, the creepiest image in all of film history. It gives me the willies every time I see it. It is they're coming across this ridge, and they see these big giant X's up on this ridge that are like scarecrow kind of things, but they're made up to look like, I don't know, kind of like apes. We recognize them as apes because we know, the title of the film and things like that. They don't recognize it right away, but I don't like those scarecrow things, Michaela. I think they're creepy looking. I don't like them.
And I didn't recognize them as apes at first. They just looked like these big X's. At first, it was, I don't know, early 2000s when I saw this film, but the first time I was like, oh, are those skins that they've hung out? And they are, but they look like, I don't know, skins of that are hair, that have hair on them. So at first I was like, ooh, this could be really bad. And I remember distinctly seeing something quite similar in some of like The Walking Dead. One of either that or the Fear of the Walking Dead, one of those, where something like that was supposed to be a warning. And it's a direct homage to this scene here, because it is really creepy. You don't know what you're looking at, but you know that maybe you shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Maybe you shouldn't go past the big X's that look like skinned humans or skinned apes, whatever they are. They're skinned. They don't look, they're flat. They're very flat. They don't look like we should be there. We should heed that warning.
Don't go there. Yeah, our crew, runs right up to them, but they don't care too much because they look off into the distance. Taylor spots like a lake that they can go in, which is good. It's surrounded by trees. They can have a bit of a swim, freshen up a bit. That's what our lads do here. They strip down and they take a bit of a bath in this lake. But we're going to meet a couple more inhabitants of this place, right? There's more people there. That's good, except they steal your clothes. That's bad. But we find out a couple of things right away. There's kind of like this like tribe of other humans here. So I guess on one hand, that's good. We're not alone on this planet, right? And Taylor even comes along and says, these people, they don't seem that intelligent. I don't even think they can speak, which means that, the three of us should be running the show here within a couple of weeks. So that's pretty good. George Taylor is always one for having confidence. But as they're going and they're kind of pursuing them, trying to get their clothes back and things, we're going to find out that this world is not exactly what it seems at all.
Yeah, I really like the opening. I don't know. At first you think that they go swimming and they take all their clothes off. I don't know if I would have done that in the water that I wasn't sure was actually water. I mean, we're still in an environment where they're like pretty sure that this isn't Earth, and they even argue about it. They're like, "Oh, this looks just like Earth." And Taylor is like, "No, man, we're 2 million miles away." And it's 3,000. It's been 3 or 4,000 years. I'm sorry, and he's very not curmudgeon-y, but he's just very matter of fact, very black and white about, you need to get over this. You need to stop thinking about the past. You need to, this is the future. And they're traveling through this and they decide to go for a swim again. I don't know if that would have been a good idea, but they find themselves where these armed gorillas are raiding a cornfield, where all of these humans that at first you think are the animals are gathering food. So the first time I saw this, and I didn't really know what it was about, I was like, oh, we're going to come up and see all the apes like eating in this field. Nope. It's a bunch of humans, but they're like very like rudely dressed. Of course, there's this really beautiful girl who is very, sporadically placed clothing, but she looks amazing in 1968. And she's eating like, it's not even a corn. It looks like a piece of coconut of some kind. She's like, it's like I don't know, like this pod thing, but they're very, they're not speaking. They're making a bunch of kind of animalistic noises. And Taylor even makes a joke. He's like, man, if this is the life forms that we have, and give us like 3 days, we'll be running this whole planet. It'll be great.
We got off at the wrong stop.
You're supposed to be the optimist, Landon.
Look on the bright side. This is the best they've got around here. In 6 months, we'll be running this planet.
Yeah, for sure. So we find the people there, and that's good. That's good. Maybe we could take over. Maybe we can run things. But it turns out that the people are not at the top of the hierarchy here on this planet for sure. Because about then, just out of nowhere, all of these apes set upon this tribe of humans, and they're chasing them down. I love the cinematography here, kind of this section. We get a lot of like top-down views of them like going through this field. They have like these big, long, like stick things. They're trying to basically like chase the human. They're trying to chase man out of these fields and things. And basically, it's like a big game hunting expedition for these apes. And I kind of like that, the symbology of that, I guess, of these apes hunting people, and then they're like strung up like like they've captured this big game. And some of them are not long for the world, but luckily for George Taylor, he's going to make it there along with Nova, who you mentioned, Michaela, played by Linda Harrison, that girl there, and then a couple of others. They're going to be captured. They're going to be taken to the home, I guess. So we don't ever learn like the name of the city here, but where the apes are living. I love this. It's very like adobo style kind of like housing, right? It's like kind of this like stucco like buildings and things like that. And I really like the set design, because as we get back into town, we're going to see George Taylor has been put into basically like a prison cell kind of, right? And like a scientific lab, because people, if you're gonna capture us, you might as well study us. And my favorite thing about Planet of the Apes, just as an aside, is this is exactly what we would do if someone random like just showed up on our doorstep. We would capture them and study them. That's exactly what we would do. So yeah, that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Now, luckily, the people that kind of are in charge of this testing facility, or kind of, I would say like an animal facility. I guess that's true because humans are animals. But we meet psychologist Zira and surgeon Gallon, and they're able to help Taylor. He gets a cut on his throat, which creates it really a real problem, because he can't just explain to them, because they all speak English, which I find also interesting. And they speak like really good, like they have these really sophisticated accents. And psychologist Zira, she's like, I'm here to study, this creature. I don't understand. And Taylor's trying to communicate with her. Yeah, like through like hand movements. He's trying to talk, but he can't. And of course that female who Taylor gets to name, he doesn't ask her what her name is. He just names her. I love it.
She couldn't talk.
She
doesn't know.
I mean, right. So I guess. Okay. Great. So she's there and he cuddles up with her and they're like, hey, this is all right. They're not miserable. But he's trying to figure out what is going on because he observes this advanced society of talking apes, right? But he also can't let go of the fact he can't take his own advice that he had been giving like 20 minutes before to his team, right? That was like, hey, you need to let things go. You're in a different place. You're in a different world. You need to just let go of your own things, right? So he's like, they're apes. I don't understand. Why are they talking? Why are they smarter than us? How am I caged? Why won't they just listen to me, right? And it's really interesting, this whole ape city and the way in which they have this kind of caste system. So like the gorillas are the military force. We've got the orangutans who oversee all the government and kind of these spiritual, religious like tropes, right?
Like
where
theology,
all the theology, and then you've got the chimpanzees are kind of the smart ones. So they're like intellectual and really like interested in science and like the doctors and all of that. And so it's really interesting because a case could be made that this was like society's 1968 take on like caste and kind of differences in religion, differences in race, differences in socioeconomic status, all of those things. But because it's apes, it's a little bit different to our human palette, as it were.
Yeah, I really like we get introduced to Zira here, who's played by Kim Hunter, and she's kind of I don't know, almost like a zoologist, a veterinarian kind of a thing, and she's attending to George Taylor there. As you mentioned, he can't speak, right? So it doesn't really seem that he's any different than any of the other human men and women out there, but he does seem to be gesturing like he can speak, and Zira's kind of taken aback by that, right? Like, oh, he's like mimicking the fact that he can talk, like an ape. I think that's pretty neat. And then eventually he's going to kind of grab a piece of paper and write down that his name is Taylor. So Zira's like, this seems odd. This seems odd. Let me go ahead and take you out of here. I'm going to put you on a leash. Promise to behave. I'm going to take you out of here. I'm going to take you home. I'm going to introduce you to Cornelius. I don't know if they were married or if they were just like courting or if they were just
pals.
Engaged. I think they were engaged.
They were getting married. Yeah.
They were engaged. So so she gets him home and she says, hey Cornelius, played by Roddy McDowall, who's awesome. Roddy McDowall is in like all of these. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But he's like, this seems like a trick. Zira, are you sure? Are you sure about this? None of this. And I love Cornelius as like the scientist, basically, right? He's like an explorer, like scientist, and he's like, it seems like a trick. George Taylor has written like 1,500 pages worth of stuff down for them. I love it so much. I love it so much. But eventually Cornelius is going to kind of come around. He's gonna get on Zira's side here that maybe George Taylor is not one of these humans that that have been running around. Maybe there really is something more to this guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's again this idea that what are you going to believe, me or your own eyes kind of situation, right? Like obviously but it's so much easier if we had somebody that looked like, I don't know, something or an animal that we have considered to be inferior, like talking and writing, we would be like, I don't know, we are a skeptical society now, right?
True.
True. Clearly it's hard for us. We definitely identify and empathize with Taylor because even though he's very black and white and kind of curmudgeon-y, he's like, I'm telling you, like, I'm trying to tell you who I am, and I'm not from this planet. So I don't know who these other humans are. He even says something like that, like, these other humans are not like me. Like, I am smarter and I am better. And they are just different. And they're like, nah, you're all the same. You look the same. We can't tell the difference between all of y'all. I mean, it was, so then he tries to find out what happened to his friend Landon. He's like, I wasn't the only one that was here. There were two others, and one of them you killed, but one of them, he should be in your group. And they're like, oh, well, go find him then. And then it's really sad because he thinks he sees him in this group, and he does. But Landon has they did something to his brain. There's this giant like U scar, and Landon looks like he's been lobotomized. And so he ain't talking. He's not going to be able to write. He's not going to be able to explain or corroborate Taylor's story. And of
Yeah.
course, in Charlton Heston, he's like, "Oh, you killed him, you dirty apes! I can't
Yeah.
believe you!" Like,
You cut out his brain. Yeah, Landon looks super creepy there as he's been lobotomized. Just standing adrift. Yeah, for sure, because George Taylor is trying to prove his innocence, and we talked about Zira and Cornelius, kind of coming around to the fact that maybe George Taylor, maybe there is something more to him. Maybe he did crash land a spaceship, or maybe he's from some other part of the world that they don't know about. But there is something more to him. But we're introduced then to Dr. Zaius, who's played by Maurice Evans, who's kind of the head of the scientific community and also basically the theological society of the Ape Society, which is probably not great. But Dr. Zaius knows he has a couple of things that he knows that the rest of the apes don't know. He kind of knows the history of humans, so he's pretty skeptical of this, and best case scenario, George Taylor is performing parlor tricks, but worst case scenario is that he's actually telling the truth, right? He actually is like this human from this lost civilization, and Dr. Zaius is very concerned about that. So they have kind of like a makeshift trial basically to decide what to do with George Taylor. Let's just castrate him and send him on his way with the rest of the people, or just get rid of him altogether, or maybe believe him. That's never going to be the case, so we have to break out. George Taylor tries his best to make an escape, and that's when he sees kind of his friends there in like a natural history museum is his one astronaut friend Dodge is in there like on display, which is pretty creepy as well. But eventually they do manage to sneak out. I really like maybe my favorite like character in this. Lou Wagner's playing Lucius, who's like the nephew of is Cornelius's nephew or Zira's nephew? He's one of their nephews, but he's great. He's like a little like a wisecracking like kid ape. He's pretty fun.
yeah.
He's pretty fun, and he helps them make their way out. And George Taylor, of course, says, "I'm not going to go anywhere without my beloved Nova. You wanted us to be mating anyways, so better take her along
I
with us."
mean,
So
I can't blame him. Linda Harrison was beautiful. She's quite pretty in this one. So yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. This was a film that has a little bit of nudity in it because they take George Taylor's clothes off of him, right? But this was still considered like PG for general audiences. There's not a lot of sort of adultness from a physical or kind of sexual standpoint, but definitely there was. They talk a lot about like how they brought on Doctor, oh my gosh, I can't remember what her name was, but the girl who was going to be on the ship with them, who ended up dying, right? Like they were all going to mate with her and like bring on the new world. That was the whole point. And the way he just kind of casually is like, yeah, now I got Zora. Or Nova. This is going to be great. Like I'll just I'll spread my seed everywhere. That's kind of weird. I just want to say I don't know how well that holds up. That's probably the only thing that doesn't hold up super well to me. But I do love like Lucius's attitude. He's so like wide-eyed and like, hey, we're gonna change the world and we're gonna fix this. This is the right thing to do. I'm standing up for what I'm gonna do. Taylor is like, don't trust anybody over 30. They're all gonna lie to you. He's just bringing him down to earth, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, don't trust anyone over 30. But they do. They make their escape, right? And Taylor's like, give me, I'm gonna take this gun. Nova and I are gonna go. We're gonna go off on our own. Take our own course. They have like this like whole scene about like where they're going to go, and then they all end up going together anyways. So you have Cornelius, Zira, and Lucius. You have Taylor and Nova kind of making their way, and they decide that they're going to go and inspect this cave that Cornelius had been to before, because he thinks that he'd found some signs of human existence, like predating that of apes, and that was something that Dr. Zaius was definitely not on board with. He's like, "Don't go to the Forbidden Zone. It's forbidden for a reason. That's bad news out there." But our crew was going to make their way there anywhere to see if they can prove that George Taylor is not a lunatic, that he's knows what he's talking about, and also that Cornelius is going to get off the hook for being in trouble for going there in the first place, trying to expand some knowledge, as it were. There's a really cool like shots of George Taylor and Cornelius like on opposite sides of this like cavern of like of like the Grand Canyon. Basically, I don't know how they got onto opposite sides because then they're back together there in just a second. But they make their way to this cave, and Dr. Zaius and his crew rolls up on them. I guess they weren't that hard to follow after all, from this camp, and I guess he probably knew exactly where they're heading. So I guess that wasn't working in their favor. But Dr. Zaius and his crew shows up kind of just in time to confront them before they go into the cave. But George Taylor, he's a thinking man. He says, listen, guy, we're gonna go. Why don't we just go up into the cave? We'll
Why are you
find
so
out.
scared?
We find out who's telling the truth, and then a problem solved. If Cornelius is lying, then do with him what you will. I'm not. You can't have me. I have a gun now, so I'm good. But Cornelius will be off the hook, right? So if Cornelius is telling the truth, and Dr. Zaya says, "Okay, that sounds good. Let's go up there. We'll see what you've discovered." And we start to unravel the mysteries of the Planet of the Apes.
Mm. And this scene is especially like interesting to me because, as you go through the plot, it's like, how do they make some of the decisions of what they see? So, Cornelius displays kind of this remnants of a technology. And we start to see and recognize some of these things, right? So there's like some teeth, like a denture set. There's some eyeglasses. There's something that a Taylor immediately identifies as a heart valve. I would not have noticed that. I would not have guessed that that's what that was.
He was an astronaut,
then,
very science-minded. The STEM,
I
STEM
guess,
guy,
I
George
guess.
Taylor.
I mean, yeah, that's right. A guy who believes in heart valves, but apparently not the nothing to do with like lungs because he's smoking a cigar on a ship. But anyway, but the most important piece I think is there's this plastic human doll. And it looks like it's been through the ringer. I mean, it looks like Strange Barbie years later. And it's got this really haunting like sound when you touch it or when you squeeze it. And it goes like, which is really creepy, but obviously it's a talking human doll. And George Taylor tries to make the case that he's like, why would you have a talking human doll? We don't talk. You said that the humans don't talk. So why would you have that? Like this is what is happening? And so then Zaius admits that he's always known, and that certain people within that the tribe of apes have always known about this ancient human civilization, and they never wanted it to they didn't want the humans to get to grow up or get smarter. We don't really know what happened to get them to the point where they are now, because they're not able to talk. But he was like, we could not let that happen. We knew that. But we knew this whole time, and we've been hiding it from people, or from the ape population.
Yeah, exactly. And so they kind of go outside, and Dr. Zaius is, he still has like his troops there, his battalion, but George Taylor kind of gets the one up on him. He holds him at gunpoint there and gets him tied up. And Dr. Zaius, kind of to the end, is still defending his position on this. He's like, listen, guy, I know what you're saying is true, and what I'm saying is also true. It's that there were humans, and they all killed each other because you people like to just kill each other for fun, for lust, and for greed, and all of these things. And Dr. Zaius has said that a couple of times, right? George Taylor is from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Dr. Zaius is like, even in this place that you made up is like a military place. Like, what is wrong with you people? And George Taylor is like, well, maybe that's true, but I'm getting out of here. I'm taking my gun. I'm taking Nova. We're heading up the coast. And Dr. Zaius says, well, I wish you good luck on your way, but if you keep looking for things, you're not going to like what you find. So what does Dr. Zaius do? He decides to not let Cornelius go forward with this research. They're just going to blow up that cave. Don't let anyone find out the truth about what's happening here for the Ape Society. And George Taylor and Nova are on their way up the coast on horseback. And they get to a certain point. You kind of see it in the foreground there as the shot pulls back from it, and it's a couple of little spiry spike things there. And we find out that George Taylor wasn't on a alien world at all.
No, he wasn't. And this scene is so amazingly well done. It still gives me chills, even though I've seen it now a couple of times, right? You pull back and you see these spires and you're like, what is that? Now, the first time I saw this, I really didn't know what it was.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
I had no idea. And I was like, oh gosh, is it a skeleton? Is it like a dinosaur? What is it? And then you see the shot of the front of what actually George Taylor's looking at, and it's the top of the Statue of Liberty. And so you see the crown was the spires, you see the hand reaching up, and you see kind of the torch. You only see the top half, so you don't know if this like if it had fallen and it just landed upright. You don't know if like over hundreds of thousands of years the sea level changed. You have no idea. But
Hmm.
it's a beautiful shot of like the sweeping sea and the waves crashing and this beautiful horse, and uh uh Nova has no idea what's going on, but George Taylor starts getting real upset
Yeah,
because he
he
was
about
wrong.
falls off of his horse there and down into falls to his knees in the tide of the ocean there. Yeah, it's an amazing cinematic shot. It's kind of a special effects shot. I guess they made it the Statue of Liberty was like a matte painting that they worked in, seamlessly to this background, and it looks absolutely amazing. The top down shot you get through the spires, I guess they had actually made that to like one half scale with paper mache,
Oh
and to get the shot like through the crown there of him coming there. And then of course, George Taylor is pounding his fist into the surf of the ocean, saying, "You did it, you blew it all up, damn you all to hell," he says. And that would be a pretty tough pill to swallow, I think. You think you're 2,000 years in the future on some alien planet, and it turns out you just went back home, and everything has changed. What happened? What happened to society? And that is it. It just ends with that shot of George Taylor in the surf, Nova on the horse, looking at the Statue of Liberty. It's calm. There's a lot of like music and musical cues through this, but it's just silent. All you hear is the surf of that. It's very like horror-esque like ending
mhm.
to it. Very sci-fi, like traditional, like tried and true, like science fiction there. And that's how it ends, and I love it.
Yeah, it you should love it because it's totally lovable. This is one of the saddest endings to a film too, because it doesn't end well for anybody, right? Like at the beginning of
Mhm.
the end, Zaius completely lies to Zira, Cornelius, and Lucius, right? At first he's like, well, you've proven us wrong, and so like we're gonna have to let you go now. And then of course when Nova and Taylor leave, he's like, yeah, we're gonna seal this cave off, and you guys are gonna go to down for heresy, and you're probably gonna be killed. Sorry
Mhm.
about it, but that's
Yeah.
progress, that right. And then Taylor and Nova, Taylor's destroyed, like he can't go back. What is he going to do? He's you know, how's that going to work, right? Like it's and also the insurmountable like upset that this whole time George Taylor wasn't taking his own advice, right? And not being open to the idea that he could be completely wrong about everything. And so it's almost too much for him to bear. He's so incredulous and dismayed that we did this to ourselves. And
Mhm.
somehow we created the space for another animal to rise above us in the whole food chain hierarchy discussion, right? Like how did that happen? This film, people had tons of questions. It's based on a book, so of course if you've read the book, it's a little bit different, but people had tons of questions about like how did that happen, what could possibly have happened, was it nuclear war? It's kind of that's the story in the movie, but like where did that happen, and how did the apes rise up, and how did they learn English, and all of these things, right? um
Mhm.
and that's where we get to the entire franchise that it is today.
And that's where we get to the entire franchise. Absolutely, because in 1968, the world kind of had like this like similar like kind of imagination and stuff about like space travel, and the space race and all that stuff was going on kind of in this time of the world. And what would happen like if people actually went into space. So it was playing on that, and it was also playing on things into like the Cold War and stuff, and technology. So it kind of fits in like time wise, like really, really nicely in there. As you mentioned, Michaela, it was based on a book by Pierre Boulle, who also wrote Bridge Over the River Kwai. So that's quite the feather in its cap for where you're getting your source material from. You're getting the very much up and coming director, Franklin J. Schaffner, who would go on in I think 2 years to direct Patton, won the Oscar for that, and directed a bunch of really great films. The Boys from Brazil, several others that I'm totally going to be drawing a blank on right now. Papillon, I think, was the other one, big one that he directed. You had Charlton Heston, who, by all accounts, we weren't alive, but by all accounts, it seems like Charlton Heston was as big of a star as you could have, kind of in the mid 60s. They're coming off of stuff like Ben-Hur and stuff like that. So you had all these things, all these pieces coming together for a science fiction film, which wasn't something that was like propped up. We think kind of in the like the 90s, the early 2000s when, comic book movies were coming, that's something we're a little bit more familiar with, and no one took them seriously. They weren't that good, right? They were kind of campy and panned, and then it turned into this thing where they just got huge and huge and huge. It kind of started with Iron Man. Same kind of thing here for science fiction. With that, science fiction was like a campy thing that only like nerds really got into. It wasn't like a big like movie thing, or not like a successful like big like franchise kind of a thing that movie studios can make a lot of money on. But Planet of the Apes comes out, it makes $33 million at the box office, which does not seem like that much today, but it was made on a budget of 3 million. So, mega successful there. And then that paved the way. 2001, later that same year, I think crossed over the 100 million. And then Star Wars, just less than a decade later would go on to be, one of the top grossing films of all time. So I view like Planet of the Apes as basically like the stepping stone. It was the first block in what we think of science fiction films now as being huge and important. Where you have the two Avatar films, and two of the Star Wars films as being the top 10 highest grossing films of all time. But I think it all starts right here.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like this was the beginning of this kind of era was really when sci-fi became the cool thing, right? Because you had this, like I said, 2001 Space Odyssey. We kind of float right into Star Trek, Star Wars, and those were very hugely successful kind of films that kind of catapulted this idea around STEM, catapulted ideas around all of these books that had been really beloved and ideas that had been really explored, but up until then had been kind of campy, right? Where it was like, yeah, aliens, Klaatu Verada Nikto, maybe. I mean, but this was really cool. And the fact that this had so many layers, it wasn't just like, gotta fight the bad guys on a strange planet. Like, that's what you think. And I wasn't there in 1968 when this film was marketed, right? I have no idea how they did that, but I want to believe that that's what you thought you were getting into when you were sitting down in that theater. You thought you were going to go to a place where, hey, on this planet, the apes are the smart people, the smart life, and the humans are not. And how do you still win? And that's not at all what it turns out to be, right? It's this really interesting socio kind of science study on like caste systems, on religious, like what that does over time, what a society is destined to do, the whole idea of time travel and how that affects you, but not necessarily the planet that you're on, or vice versa. So all of these other things, and this kind of socio-political commentary on race and all of that. I mean, it just kind of knocks the socks off of you now to think about it. And it has been almost 60 years since this film was made, right? There were 4 sequels. There was a television series. Then they tried to do a reboot in 2001 with Tim Burton. They've done another reboot, and now we're on its 4th sequel for that. I mean, it has opened up doors in a very different way than a lot of other kind of science fiction stories have, but in the same ideas around, socioeconomic changes and race and castes, and, how do you define the worthiness of a type of life, is really, really special and really well done. And it all started with this one.
It all started right here. And, hats off to the people who decided to adapt this and put it onto screen, because they took it so seriously. It's a very serious film with, you strip it down. It's kind of a silly almost premise, right? But they took it so seriously, and it's just like this big epic. I mean, you have the first like almost like 20 minutes of the film is, just Taylor and the other two astronauts just, walking across this terrain, just, pondering what does life mean? What does it mean if you've outlived everyone that ever lived? What does it mean to be the last, humans alive, and stuff like that. You're kind of hitting at there, Michaela. And then, yeah, obviously it spawned a bunch of stuff. You make back, 11 times your budget. They're going to go ahead and start cashing in on this thing. They had all of the sequels there, Beneath the Planet of the Apes in 1970, Escape, Conquest, and Battle the Planet of the Apes in 1973. Roddy McDowall, I think, was in all of these except for, I think he was not in Escape, and then he didn't do the animated series. But Roddy McDowall was the staple there throughout these films, which is really pretty great because Roddy McDowall had, quite the history of acting himself, which is really pretty cool. And that brings us to the reboot series, which started coming out in 2011. So Rise of the Planet of the Apes. We had kind of that trilogy, and now we're starting off on, I guess, the next trilogy of that story, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and that has just come out here this past week, which was really what prompted us to talk about this in the first place. And it's weird because, you look at it now, right? So the five original movies, a TV show, cartoon, comic books, the remake of it, and now like four movies of this reboot. Like Planet of the Apes is, up there in terms of movies that have gotten, this continual treatment, but I don't want to say that it gets overlooked, but you don't ever think about it, right? You think about Star Wars, you think about, Marvel or like comic book stuff, or, you think about these other franchises. Like even Jurassic
Hmm.
Park, like I think people think of like Jurassic Park as a big franchise before they would think of Planet of the Apes, but Planet of the Apes is right up there. And like I said, this was something that goes back to my childhood, something that I've loved and loved like the world of, and just kind of like the idea of it. And I think it's like I said, it's because it was handled seriously and it looks great. It
Yeah.
doesn't look as good as, Caesar and Maurice in these new Planet of the Apes films, but for the practicality of, doing people in the makeup,
Yeah.
um, it's unbelievable.
I,
It's unbelievable how good it
it
looks.
is completely unbelievable. I would say that the original Planet of the Apes holds up to the 2001 Tim Burton version of Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And for sure, right? And that was real people who were not CGI'd over, right? I think that was actual hair and makeup, just like in the
Hmm.
past. Maybe there was a little bit of CGI, but I remember like Helena Bonham Carter is like she's getting a mask put on. So
Hmm.
I think it definitely holds up that way. I think they look pretty good, and some of the things that like we haven't learned our lesson because we're still going over a lot of the lessons that are taught to us in this original one. And I think
Hmm.
it's really interesting. I'm really glad that they're continuing because I feel like the earth needs to hear it, because I don't know if we've gotten any better. That in
Right.
like 3,000 years, we're not going to see the Statue of Liberty like hanging out on the side of a beach somewhere because we can't get our act together. But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this was not a childhood film for me, and I missed out on all of the other Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon remakes, right? Or the sequels that were in the 70s and the series that came out. I missed all of that. And so
Hmm.
it's kind of cool because as an adult, I get to really enjoy it. And I'm really glad they rebooted it because there are people that are not going to watch something that is old, but they really should. This is worth your time. If you've not seen it and you're here with the spoilers, that's fine. But you should give it a shot because it is really well done. It's not an action film. It is something else. And so you should just, that going in, it's not going to have these like big explosions, and you're not going to see kind of the fighting that you see in the newer ones, but the all the ideas are still there, and it's really, really well done. It's worth your time.
Absolutely. So that is Planet of the Apes. So let us know out there if you've seen it or if you didn't see it until you were an adult. Was that ending spoiled for you, or did it catch you by surprise? I will say they do a really good job of holding that back. Once you see it, you can't, you're all these clues are there the whole time. But I think it plays really well if you don't know that twist. So let us know how you found that out. Let us know if you are making your way out to see the newest installments of Planet of the Apes, and definitely let us know if you make a Planet of the Apes cocktail. It was a tasty one for sure. That's one Michaela and I are going to be making a bunch of times. So if you want to see pictures of ours, you can do that. Go to our website. It's www.drinkthemovies.com. You'll find episode recaps, pictures of our cocktails, links to our store, which is drinkthemovies.square.sites, and the Patreon, patreon.com/drinkthemovies. You can go there. That's a really great way to support the podcast. We appreciate our patrons over there. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming everyone's way, including bonus episodes, cocktail chats, all that sort of stuff. So you can find out some more information there. Best place to get information about what we got going on, though, is on our social medias. That's at Drink the Movies on Instagram and X and Threads and Blue Sky, and Facebook.com/Drink the Movies. Go there. We're always posting stuff and getting a lot of community feedback about what people are watching and drinking. Always really good time. And you can follow us on Discord. That link's on there too. We chat about all the stuff we're buying and watching and stuff like that. So that is a great way to follow along with the podcast. But you want to make sure, most importantly, that you're getting this content we're putting out twice a week. Michaela, where can they do that?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, anywhere where Spotify podcasts are supported and distributed. So your rectangle that you have and are probably attached to a lot, wherever you're listening to us from, there is a subscribe button. I promise you there is. And if you're liking what you're hearing, you can press that button. What you can also do is leave a 5-star review. They really help us get more Drink the Movies content out to more people. We are so overwhelmed with gratitude for all the fans and people who listen all the time to us. If, you know, like Brian has just said, right? We love connecting with our listeners and getting feedback. And we can't do that without your help. So thank you so much for all that you do to get all the Drink the Movies stuff out there.
Absolutely. So that is going to wrap it up for Planet of the Apes. Thank you so much for joining us. Tune in next week. We're going to be talking about the newest Planet of the Apes. We're going oldest to newest here on Drink the Movies. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time on
Drink the Movies.
Movies.
Gonna go sit in a starship and smoke a cigar.
Smoke a cigar. Give Zira a smooch at the end, though. You're so damn ugly.
That's right. I mean, he's not great looking. He hasn't shaved in like at least a week.